So, how do you know what you know? I mean, really, think about it. It sounds like a simple question, right? But it's actually one of the deepest rabbit holes in all of philosophy. Today, we're diving into the two big ways philosophers categorize knowledge, what they call a priori and a posteriori. But let's start with a simpler question. Can you actually figure out if something is true without ever getting up, without running an experiment, without even looking out the window? The answer, kind of surprisingly, is a huge yes. And that simple idea, well, it's the key to everything we're about to unpack. At its heart, this whole thing is about a classic showdown: knowledge you get just from thinking versus knowledge you get from going out and actually experiencing the world. Okay, so first up is a priori. It's Latin for from the earlier. This is knowledge that doesn't need any experience. You know it just by using pure reason. Think about math or basic logic. On the flip side, you've got a posteriori, or from the later, which is the exact opposite. This is knowledge that absolutely depends on evidence from the real world. You got to go out and check the facts. Let's make this crystal clear with an example. Take the first statement. If George V reigned at least 4 days, then he reigned more than 3 days. You don't need a history book for that, right? It's just true by pure logic. That's a priori. But the second statement, George V reigned from 1910 to 1936, well, for that one, you've got no choice. You have to go check the historical records. That's a posteriori. So if we want to get just a little more formal about it, a priori knowledge is any knowledge where the justification doesn't rely on your senses. It's the kind of truth you can land on just by thinking it through in the right way. And this brings us right back to our starting point, with that fantastic quote from the philosopher Galen Strawson. He calls it the couch test. If you can prove something is true without getting off your couch to go check on the physical world, bingo, you're dealing with a priori knowledge. It's just a brilliantly simple way to think about it. But of course, the story doesn't end there. It gets even more interesting. The legendary philosopher Immanuel Kant came along and added another crucial layer to this whole conversation, connecting it to the very nature of the statements we make. So Kant introduced this idea of analytic versus synthetic truths. An analytic statement is true just because of what the words mean. The truth is basically baked right into the definition. But a synthetic statement? That's different. It actually adds new information to the mix. It synthesizes different ideas to tell you something new about the world. And the classic go-to example of an analytic truth is this: all bachelors are unmarried. I mean, you don't need to go out and interview a bunch of bachelors to confirm this, do you? Of course not. The very definition of a bachelor already includes the idea of being unmarried. It's the perfect couch truth. All right, let's add our third and final piece to this puzzle. This last distinction isn't about how we know something or even about language. This one is about reality itself. We're getting into metaphysics here. And here we're talking about necessary versus contingent truths. A necessary truth is something that just couldn't possibly be false. It's true in our world, and it would be true in any other world you could possibly imagine. A contingent truth, on the other hand, is something that, yeah, it happens to be true here and now, but it didn't have to be. Things easily could have turned out differently. So for a really long time, a lot of philosophers thought these three ideas were all just different sides of the same coin. They figured that if a statement was knowable a priori, from the couch, it must also be analytic and necessary. It was this beautiful, tidy little bundle where everything fit together perfectly. But you know how it goes in philosophy. Just when you think you've got everything neatly sorted out, someone brilliant comes along and decides to shake things up. And in the 20th century, this tidy bundle got a major, major twist. And I'm not just talking about a small correction here. This was a full-on philosophical bombshell. And the person who dropped it was a philosopher named Saul Kripke. Kripke's game-changing move was to focus on one simple scientific fact. Water is H2O. First, he asks, is this a necessary truth? And the answer is yes. Think about it. If some alien liquid on another planet isn't made of H2O, then it's just not water, period. So it's necessary. But then he asks the killer question. How do we know this? Well, we didn't figure that out from our couches. We had to do science, run experiments. We learned it a posteriori. And just like that, boom. Kripke showed that necessary a posteriori truths exist, and that whole tidy bundle just completely fell apart. So where does this leave us? Does it mean everything's just a confusing mess? Not at all. What Kripke's bombshell really teaches us is that these three pairs of concepts aren't the same thing. They're actually three different, specialized tools for thinking about truth. Here's the simplest way to put it all together. The a priori, a posteriori distinction is about knowledge. It asks, how do we know it? The analytic, synthetic distinction is about language. It asks, why is this statement true? And finally, the necessary contingent distinction is about reality itself. It asks the deepest question, could it have been false? Three different domains, three different questions.
And that is why this all matters so much. These aren't just dusty old terms. They are precision instruments for thinking clearly. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other things that we had to discover through science, like water is H2O, are actually deep, unchangeable, necessary truths about the very fabric of our universe? It just goes to show you, sometimes the biggest breakthroughs aren't about discovering new facts, but about discovering entirely new ways to think.